I invite you to honestly because a space where we make it raw and keep it real with unscripted conversations. I am your friend, Anna Lucas. About 6 months ago, my husband and I were having dinner with some friends at B-Dubs, and we were all just hanging out and talking, and we ended up talking about my health, and I ended up saying that, if I had to choose on which thing was harder to deal with, whether it was my mental and emotional health or my physical health, I had said that I would choose my mental and emotional health has been a harder battle for me, and has been very hard for me to deal with. And I remember my friends being really kind of surprised and saying oh really, you really say that is your mental and emotional health is been a harder battle than your health. And at the time I was just yeah, absolutely. And in when we were having that conversation, that was where majority of my focus had been going, and had been realizing was that yeah, I need to heal. I need to have more healing on my mental and emotional front. And we finished having dinner and stuff, and later on my husband and I were driving home, and I just remember telling him I just feel like the Lord's dealing with me about what I said and about my health, and that it wasn't actually fair to say that, fair to myself to say that, because I just started remembering all these moments from when I was a little girl to now, or at the time to up to that point, of all these moments when I had been so sick and not knowing what was wrong, and being going to the hospital and them telling me oh, it's just a stomach bug, or it's just some sort of virus, it just needs to run its course, or we're not really sure what's wrong, but it should go away with time, or it's just your hormones, you're just growing, and stuff. And so I was constantly told these different reasons of things on why my body was hurting me so bad, why I got stomach viruses, right? Air quotes around that, stomach viruses, so much as a child, and would throw up a lot or have, TMI, but keeping it raw and real, diarrhea and severe stomach pain and even constipation and stuff like that, and never knowing what was causing it, and was just always told it was a virus or a stomach virus. And even having really bad headaches and not knowing what was wrong, and everything. So, and I honestly, even being diagnosed with lactose intolerance when I don't even think I'm lactose intolerant. I know that if I drink straight up milk, then I get upset stomach, but anything outside of that, I don't. And so it just is I don't really think that was even accurate, but most of the time I never got diagnosed with anything or was ever told what actually was wrong and how to move forward in that. And so, I realized that I had really minimized my experiences, and because I had been so used to not receiving an answer or clarity on what I was experiencing, I just started pushing it off because it was easier to pretend that I wasn't there and that it wasn't a problem when I wasn't currently experiencing it. And especially when my focus has been so much on my mental and emotional healing. And so, the Lord was just reminding me hey, no, you can't do that, because I want to use your story. I want to use your experiences to help people. And that's not just in the mental and emotional realm. That is also in the things you've experienced in your physical health. And that was just really hard for me because, like I said, I started remembering all these different times that I was sick that I didn't remember, and how hard it was for me. And like people that I was around at the time began to get numb to my experiences and just thought, well, that's Anna. She's constipated, and or it's just Anna. Yep, she has stomach problems because of her lactose intolerance, and like, oh, but it's Anna. She just has a stomach flu and stuff, and just like writing off what I was experiencing as in a way of it being normal, even though it wasn't normal and for me, and didn't have answers. And so that began me treating myself different with my health stuff, because it was just like, oh, here we go again, here's another thing, and then it's just like, once it was through, whatever, never like I would forget that it happened, and I would just keep moving on until the next time something happened. And so that brings me like to current day, like 6 months ago, I was still very much didn't know what was going on with my health, even though I was trying to seek, the right doctors and the right tests and stuff to try to figure out what was going on. And also, like, my mental and emotional health was at such a peak at the time that was taking most of my time, my energy, and my focus. And so, I was still trying to work on my health. And thankfully, because of that, I found out through an allergist that I have an autoimmune disease, that I have chronic hives where my skin isn't sealed correctly the way it should be together, and that it lets a lot of like things into my skin and my body, and that um my skin begins to attack itself and have allergic, like a severe allergic reaction. And where I get hives, I get my mouth and my tongue and everything starts closing and swelling up, in my eyes and everything. And then it's weird, but my hands even go numb, and stuff. And then it gets hard for me to breathe. And so then I found out that I needed to carry an EpiPen, because my skin can attack itself anywhere between 3 to 5 years of a window if I'm not like, it can be really bad if I'm not taking allergy medicine and regularly. And, if I don't have my EpiPen, then it could be really bad. And I carry Benadryl too. And so, and essentially that was also something that was happening since I was a little girl, where I was having random severe allergy reactions and not knowing what it was from. And then my parents would give me Benadryl, and thankfully that was at the time enough to subside the allergic reaction. But then when I got older, and it happened and I was in high school, and I didn't remember having allergic reactions prior, but it was so severe that my dad had to come get me from my volleyball practice at the time, and he brought Benadryl, and he took me straight to the hospital, and they told him that if he hadn't given me Benadryl when he picked me up, then I probably wouldn't have had made it, because the allergic reaction was so severe. And I didn't know it. I was like just chilling, like, yeah, I feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I feel itchy. And yeah, I didn't know how swollen I was because I didn't see myself in the mirror or anything. But apparently I looked really scary, because then the nurse came in and was like, hi, I'll be right back. And I was like, oh, okay, like what happened? And then she came back with like 4 or 5 other nurses, and I'm like, okay, this is serious, and then thankfully, they hooked me up to an IV and got me medicine and stuff, and then it all went down and went back to normal, thankfully. But yeah, that's when they ended up telling him, like, if you hadn't given her Benadryl, she probably wouldn't have made it. And that was crazy to realize, that something could have happened. And so that told me there's something that I'm allergic to. I need to get tested and stuff. And so a couple of years later, and it's hard to find a good doctor. And so that was part of the process, was I had to find a good doctor. I had to find a doctor that would refer me to the right people and also help me advocate for my health. Where a lot of times when I had doctors, they would kind of just, like I said, write it off. Like, oh, it's just your hormones, you'll grow out of it. Oh, it's just this. It'll change, like it won't last for a while, I don't know how to explain it, but they would just tell me, or my legs would hurt me so bad at night and I couldn't sleep, and I would be crying, and they would say, oh, it's just growing pains. Well, I can tell you that I am an adult and I haven't had growing like growing pains, quote unquote, in a long time, but I still have that pain, that same pain in my legs, And so I told my doctor, like, I don't think they're growing pains. I'm not growing anymore. Like, I'm a full grown adult. And so she's like, okay, yeah, there's something going on here. And unfortunately, she didn't know what to do. So she just gave me muscle relaxers so that I could help like get rest at the time because when I'm hurting, I can't sleep. But yeah, so, all these little things that we're figuring out that is wrong and that there's kind of a pattern to. And so that's when I found out a few years later, when I found a good doctor who referred me to an allergist, that I had an autoimmune disease of chronic hives. And then come to find out, I found out that it was hereditary, that my grandma on my mother's side had chronic hives and stuff. And so it's just like, oh, so this isn't so mysterious anymore. And this isn't just random. It's, from my grandma and stuff. And so then that's just one example. And then another one is like I had migraines for a really long time. Since I was a little girl, I'd always like cry because my head hurt and stuff. And I remember my dad would take me to the hospital and like get like my tests done on my head and stuff, and everything would look fine. They said that everything looked normal, that everything looked how it should. And but my head would hurt a lot. And then, high school, it got way worse. I was having such bad migraines that I would lose coordination, that I wouldn't be able to text. I wouldn't be able to hold my phone. I wouldn't be able to like see. My eyes would literally mess up and I wouldn't be able to see things. It would get so bad that I could only see like shadows of things. And that was it. Like I don't know how else to explain it, but yeah, so then, it was making me like nauseous and my hands would go numb again. And I wouldn't really be able to walk. I would get really fatigued. And yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It just would make me so physically sick because it hurt so bad. And I went to the hospital because I literally, I knew something was wrong. And when I got to the hospital, I had a seizure like episode, and they kept me in the hospital for 3 days doing all these tests trying to figure out, was it a seizure? What happened? Is there things still happening now? What caused it and stuff? And literally all the tests came back clean. Like nothing was wrong. Everything looked normal, and they had no idea what happened. And so fast forward a few years later, like I said, with my getting referred to a good allergist from my doctor, I had that same doctor referred me to a good neurologist to help me understand what was going on with my head, what it hurting so bad and causing these severe things. And I found out that it was severe migraines, that I was having severe migraines that was causing me to have throw up and have severe stomach issues, and making me physically sick and taking out my eyesight and having light sensitivity and all this stuff that migraines can cause, and everything. And then I get put onto a daily migraine medicine and an onset migraine medicine to help me do that. And now, if I can catch it soon enough, then it's not so bad. But it was to the point to where that my migraines were making me throw up and making me sick to my stomach and everything. And then I got answers for that, for something that was, going on. And then, fast forward some more, and my doctor retires. I get a new doctor. She also is very good and started helping me advocate for things for my health, to find out what things were going on. Um, and then I ended up going to the emergency room again with throwing up, severe stomach pain, painful bowel movements, like I literally was crying and couldn't stop crying because it was hurting. Everything was hurting so bad, and I just didn't know what was going on. And I felt so nauseous. I felt dizzy. I think I said severe stomach pain. And then my head was hurting me really bad, and my hands were going tingly and numb. And what else was happening? I was feeling like I was gonna pass out, so I was cold. I got so cold to the touch and got pale, and my feet were ice cold, my hands were ice cold, my face was ice cold, and I got so pale, and I felt like I had no strength. I got severely fatigued, and we went to the hospital because it just wasn't letting up. It was hours and hours and hours, and like I said, I've had things like this happen before, and so it was just like, some we started knowing like, okay, this is at least we know for sure tied to migraines. And so we kept thinking it was just my migraines, just severe migraines happening. And then this one time it was different though. I went to the emergency room and they said, after they got me stable and, they gave me medicine to help with the pain in my head, and that subsided the other symptoms and stuff. And they told me, like, you're explaining that you were gonna pass out, you were having symptoms of passing out, um, and everything. And they said, what you're describing to us of what things we were experiencing, yes, it was partially your migraine stuff, but we also think that you need to see a cardiologist because and get tested for POTS. That a lot of the symptoms you're explaining were POTS related. And I don't remember the what POTS stands for right now. But it's something with like your posture and like changing like your position. Like if I'm sitting, so that's a posture. So if I stood up, that's another posture. If I were to lay down, that's a posture. And so when you sit up from laying down or you stand up from sitting down, that's a change in your posture. And so things change in your body when you change posture with POTS, but it's much bigger than that. And stuff. And so, that made me realize like, okay, I need to go get referred to a cardiologist. Well, the doctor had referred me to a cardiologist, and that cardiologist ended up telling me, I think you have POTS, and I think there's some CKB issues going on with your heart and like how your brain and your nervous system is communicating to where your blood needs to go with your heart and stuff, and it's causing your heart rate to shoot up randomly and then to drop. And so, which at the time I also was having issues of passing out and stuff, or almost passing out and getting lightheaded. And this happened when I was younger too, and especially when I was a teenager. And that was one of the things that they said was just hormonal. It'll change, as you mature and grow. And stuff, but it didn't. It got worse in seasons, and then like kind of like eased, and like I forgot about it, and then it would come back in other seasons and stuff. Well, at this time when it had gotten really bad, I was passing out a lot and stuff and it was because I got COVID, and I got really sick with COVID, and I didn't know at the time, but my autoimmune disease, because of that, that makes you more susceptible to illness and like viruses and stuff. And so when I caught COVID, it really made me sick. I haven't really stabilized since having COVID in my health. But that's when I realized things were really, really wrong. It was when I got really sick with COVID, and then things just got worse. Everything that I was already dealing with got worse. And so that was part of the discovery process as well, because that's when I really passed out. The first time I passed out was a couple months after having COVID, and I was still really sick. And I passed out completely and then had a bloody nose and stuff, and I didn't fall and bust my nose. My husband caught me and stuff, and so I know I didn't bust my nose or like physically get hurt to cause that. So we knew something was wrong. And that's when it started issues. This was before we found out that I needed to see a cardiologist and stuff. And so they thought that I had a tumor in my brain because of the things that I had experienced. And so they were doing all these tests on my heart and trying to see my brain and stuff and make sure that there was nothing wrong with it. Thankfully, nothing was wrong with it. But what was frustrating was that everything came back normal. And so and that was kind of like the worst thing for me, is because I was so used to hearing throughout my life and these weird health experiences that, everything is quote unquote normal. You you are healthy. Nothing is showing up wrong. So we don't know what you experience or what's going on, but we just know that you're healthy and everything's normal. And might sound weird, but it ended up being getting to a point to where I began to really not like that answer. I really began to dread hearing normal and healthy because I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what. And you might have heard me before when I've talked about my health, my mental and emotional health, that with the things that before I even knew what was going on with that, like diagnoses I have with that, is I started thinking I was crazy. I started thinking that, I was making this stuff up maybe, and that I was pretending, and maybe I was overreacting and being dramatic, and that this stuff really wasn't as bad as it was. And that's where the minimizing kind of started, right? Is like I started questioning my experiences and how I was feeling and what was going on, and everything. And especially because everyone keeps telling me it's normal, you're healthy, nothing's wrong. And then it was just like, oh, it's just Anna. It's just Anna being sick again. It's just Anna not feeling good again. It's just Anna crying because her stomach hurts again. Like, and you begin to get numb to these things because it's just, I don't know. It's just something that becomes normal, I guess. So yeah, I had a series of minimizing things. And so yeah, I began to like dread hearing normal. Things came back normal because that never resulted in me getting answers. It never resulted in me moving forward and finding out what was wrong. And so, yeah, so fast forward, went to ER, they told me, you should see a cardiologist, you need to get tested for POTS and stuff. And so I ended up getting referred to cardiologists and had to go through the waiting process to see the cardiologist. And then when I did, I had to go through a process of where in office I had to sit down, stand up, and do these different things. And while they were checking my heart rate and everything to see what was going on, and they diagnosed me with POTS right there in the office that day on my first appointment with the cardiologist. And they told me that I had syncopes as well, which, like I said, is a communication in your body between your nervous system, between your brain, your heart, and your nervous system in your stomach, which is like your vasovagal nerve. And that there was some communication things going wrong that was causing me to pass out and my heart rate to shoot up and drop and randomly start racing and everything. And so they then told me that I had to be referred to a POTS and syncope specialist, but that was going to be a long process because of they were the best in the world. And thankfully, they're not far from me. So they referred me to the best in the world of POTS and syncope problems. And then, come to find out, had to wait a few months. And in the meantime, my cardiologist put me on medicine to help me cope with these things, these symptoms and stuff, and to hopefully help me to get to the specialist. And so when I got to the specialist, they then again confirmed that I had POTS. They listened to all the symptoms that I had. And in the meantime, my husband and I were doing a ton of research on what is POTS, what causes POTS. And come to find out that POTS is closely related to people who have autoimmune diseases. And then so my autoimmune disease was also interfering with the POTS that I have, and also making those symptoms worse and more common or more frequent. And then when I went to my neurologist at the time, I was like, hey, I just got diagnosed with POTS. I was doing my normal neurologist checkup, and she's like, well, when do you have migraines and stuff? And I said, well, it's weird, but it seems to correlate when I have these POTS episodes. And so it seems like I have a severe migraine and a severe POTS episode at the same time. And she said, yes, those things can correlate. So then I find out that now my severe migraines are also contributing to the POTS and that being worse, and that they can be inflamed at once and contribute to one another being inflamed, if that makes sense. And so then I'm like, dang, I got hit with like a what is that? Like three things working together in a bad way. And so, yeah, get to the specialist. They confirm that I have POTS. They confirm that my nervous system is not communicating correctly. It's not stabilizing my body correctly in the way that it should be. And so I'm like sweating when I shouldn't be. I'm getting really cold because my blood flow is not flowing right, and my hands and feet are discolored, and severe pain in like my neuroskeletal muscular system in my whole body, that's your whole body. It's your muscles, your nerves, your tendons, your bones, everything working together, and getting severe pain and all over my body and stuff. And so basically it was kind of frustrating because she was asking me all these symptoms. I said, honestly, oh, and like redness in my face. But yeah, it's like, honestly, I feel like every single symptom that we've read, I've had almost every single one of them, except for maybe one or two. And she kind of laughed and was like, yeah, that can happen, and it sounds like it, like with what you're communicating to me and stuff. And so then there, I'm still in the process of figuring out how to handle and find solutions to where I'm at, rather than just like treating it and then going on the rest of my life knowing that this is what's wrong and that I just have to live with it. So I don't really have all the answers on how to get better if you're dealing with like health issues and stuff. But what I can tell you is that it's good for you to advocate for healing and understanding of what's going on with you and in your life, whether that be a mental and emotional experiences. And then I found out that, autoimmune diseases and POTS, and I believe it was severe migraines as well, was like a susceptibility to depression and anxiety. And then not only that, but then I found out that and I also was diagnosed with PTSD from some experiences that I have and stuff, but I found out that those all can be genetic as well, and that my mom, has all three of those, and my dad has struggled with depression and stuff, and my aunt has as well, and so like I have it from both sides of my family, both parents and stuff. And so I just like got all the cards for all the things and to work together, so in not a good way. And so with that, I'm saying I've had to advocate for myself and seek healing and answers for what I'm experiencing, even though I didn't know what was going on. And so I know what it's like to have like invisible illness and not know what's going on, to have invisible sickness, to where people can't really see. You look functional, you look like fine, you look whole. There's not like, it's not like you have a broken arm or you're missing a hand or something. It's like, well, you look whole, you look good, you look healthy. So I don't like, what's wrong? And it's just like, well, I don't know. I just know I don't feel good. And a lot of times that's the answer. So I know what that's like. And if you're going through that, I'm sorry, but you're not alone. But I encourage you to seek healing, to don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the amount of healing that you can experience, because there is a God that wants to heal you and that wants to be a part of your life and help you to seek that wholeness that you desire and in that, you deserve, honestly. Like, so I know what that looks like for you. If it's a mental and emotional like health stuff, and you're struggling with things that you're not sure of, then I encourage you to look for a therapist, look for someone who is well balanced and knowing how to identify these things and stuff. And don't stay with the therapist that's telling you you're doing all the right things and that you're in a good place. Look for a therapist that's actually going to challenge you and tell you where you need growth and improvement and healing in your life, and that there's things that need to be addressed. Because oftentimes we can get comfort in where we're at and not move forward, and then continue to deal with things we don't understand just because we are being affirmed at what we're doing. And so I encourage you in that. And I say that because I know of people who have had therapists that way, and they genuinely believed that they were doing things the right way, and then come to find out that therapist was not helping them, that they were not actually helping them live in a healthier life, and stuff, and that it actually contributed to worse issues like years later, and then found out that those issues grew into bigger issues and interfered with that person living their life, and then the therapist didn't know what to do and said, well, I don't understand. You've done so well so far. Why can't you just do it the way you used to? Why aren't you able to handle this now when you used to be able to handle it? And so it just wasn't healthy. So that's why I give that disclaimer and say that. But also, if it's physical health, I know how hard it is to find a good doctor. I know how hard it is to get any answers, but I encourage you to keep looking, to keep seeking for answers, to keep looking for a good doctor that's going to help you and give you, a direction and where to go. Obviously I'm in my 20s, and I have had these issues since I was single digits old. And so it might not be an easy process. It might take time and everything, but most of all, in advocating in your mental, emotional, and physical health, but advocate in your spiritual health. There is a God that wants to help you heal. He loves you. He cares about you. He wants to help you in these things, and he doesn't want you to do it alone. There's going to be days when you feel like you can't do it, and he is going to have to be he wants to be your strength, and you're going to need him to be your strength. And I know that because I've experienced that. And he has been my strength on days where I felt like I couldn't do it. In moments where every single thing physically that could go wrong was going wrong, in my autoimmune disease, my severe migraines, my mental and emotional health, and POTS, my nervous system issues, like all of that was going wrong at the same time. And I couldn't handle it on my own. And stuff. And I don't think I said this, but I found out with POTS that when your body is passing out, your body can pass out and your mind still be aware, but then you have like this like seizure like symptoms like look on your body, because your body is like freaking out on what to do, and your body's trying to like your nervous system's trying to communicate and like shove blood one way, and the other thing, your brain's trying to shove blood down to your heart, and your heart's trying to shove blood, like draw blood, to its heart, because it's thinking like I need to keep pumping or whatever. And so that can cause you to have seizure like symptoms in your body where you're not controlling your body. And so then that made sense on like the seizure stuff. So you can be experiencing all these different things and not know what's going on, but know that you will find answers. Know there's a God that wants to do it with you, and he not only wants to go through this process with you, but he wants to heal you, and he wants to help you in this. And so I encourage you to continue forward. I encourage you and tell you that you're not alone. That there's other people that have experienced this, and I'm not the only person that I know that has a lot of health issues and stuff. Like there's a lot of people in my life that have experienced a lot of health issues and that they've had to go through, and some are still going through the process like I am, of figuring out what's wrong and what does it look like for them to live the rest of their life, and trying to do research on what's the best way to seek health in these things. And not just giving up and thinking, when they diagnosed me with this, so this is just the rest of my life. Well, I have depression, anxiety, so I'm just going to be depressed and anxious my whole life. No, no, because when you get diagnosed with depression, anxiety, it's not telling you that that's how you are going to live for the rest of your life. It's actually doing the opposite. It's actually telling you, hey, this is the need for healing. This is where we need to focus on healing. This is how you've learned to cope with things that you've been through. So we need to go to those experiences and understand those experiences and healthily process those experiences so that you can move forward and experience healing in a healthy way in that area of your life, so that you don't have to be depressed. You don't have to be anxious every day. Am I going to tell you that it's immediately going to go away? Probably not. Can it? Yes, because God can heal it miraculously in that way. But for me, I can only speak from my experiences. It has been a healing process. And so it's taking time. That doesn't mean it's always going to be easy and that it's always going to make sense and that it's always going to feel worth it. But just know that in the end, it is worth it. Like every time you push forward in a way, in a place that you feel like you can't go anymore, you realize that you can. You realize that you are. And you see how much further you are on the other side of those bad moments than you were before those bad moments, if that makes sense. And so just because you have diagnoses, whether in your mental and emotional health or your physical health, doesn't mean that's how it has to be for the rest of your life. There's always new research, there's always new studies and stuff, and I just encourage you, don't give up. Don't give up. You deserve a good life. And I fully believe that you don't have to stay where you are. And I hope that you see that too, and that you advocate for yourself to get wholeness and healing and growth, and that you never stop seeking that. And that one day you realize it is worth it. And hopefully it's soon, so that you don't give up in the process. Because there's going to be days where it seems harder than it was before you started the process. But as someone who is in the midst, it's always worth it. Even in the lows, the lowest lows, even in the moments where it seems like it's worse than it's ever been, I'm still here. You are still here. And I can do it. You can do it. We can do it. And I know I couldn't do it without God. And so I encourage you to reach out to Him, because He wants to help you in the ways that He also has helped me. I hope to see you in the next one. I'm so thankful to have you in this conversation. Remember, don't minimize your ailments, don't minimize your trials, don't minimize your hardships, but also try not to maximize them, because that's also not balanced. Try not to identify with those struggles and those diagnoses. Acknowledge it, but don't elevate it. Take care, friend.